What do you do when you and your partner see the exact same situation but have completely opposite experiences? One feels rejected, the other feels understood. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. One feels gratitude, and the other feels resentment. What's fascinating is that neither of you are actually necessarily wrong or lying. You're simply experiencing reality differently. But what if the difference isn't actually in reality itself? What if the difference is in the way consciousness is appearing through each of you? David, William, Pierce, welcome back. One of the reasons I've become so connected with classical tantric teachings is because they began providing language for things I was experiencing but hadn't fully managed to articulate myself. And this week's teaching is one of those teachings. It explores how consciousness creates the experience of reality itself, and why understanding that process can be profoundly liberating. This week's study comes from the School of Recognition, known as Pratyabhijna, from Christopher Harish Wallace's Tantra Illuminated. At its heart, it's a deceptively simple observation. The way consciousness contracts into experience and then releases it again may hold the key to recognizing our true nature. Tantra suggests that every experience we have is a movement of consciousness. Every thought, every emotion, every perception, whether memory, desire, or insight, first emerges from an infinite potentiality before appearing within awareness. In other words, what we call reality is not something separate from consciousness. Reality is consciousness appearing as experience. Joe Dispenza refers to this as the field. Most of us unconsciously assume there are two things happening when we experience life. There is me over here, experiencing reality, and there is reality over there, being experienced. A subject and an object, a perceiver and a perceived. But Tantra invites us to question whether this apparent separation is actually true. Because if you look closely, every experience you have ever known has appeared within consciousness itself. Tantra suggests that whatever consciousness creates is an object of awareness. It simultaneously creates a subject to perceive it. The creation of something seen means there is also the creation of a seer. A thought created requires a thinker, a feeling, a feeler. Both perceiver and that which is perceived arise together as part of one movement. And the teaching describes this process as a contraction of consciousness. Consciousness begins as infinite potential, capable of becoming anything, and then it contracts into a particular experience. You can think of this as a wave slowing down and becoming solid matter. A color, a thought, a sensation, a memory, a feeling, all of it. And at that same moment, it contracts into a perceiver capable of experiencing that thing. What we call mind is simply one side of the process. The object and the observer arise together. Neither exists independently of the other. Tantra calls this the theory of appearance, or Ābhāsa. Everything that appears within experience is an appearance of consciousness itself, not separate from it, not outside of it, simply an expression of it. If that sounds abstract, stay with me, because this is not merely philosophy. It's describing something you're experiencing right now. Every thought appearing in your awareness, every sensation in your body, every emotion that you feel or perception that you have is that. The challenge is that language trains us to see separation everywhere. We say things like, I see a tree, I feel anxious, I had a thought. And the structure of language subtly teaches us that there is a separate I interacting with a separate object. But Tantra points out something important. Remove the tree, and there is no seeing. Remove the seeing, and there is no seer. Remove the seer, and there is no experience. All three arise together. They are aspects of one continuous process. And because we forget this, we begin identifying exclusively with the limited version of ourselves. The anxious self, the rejected self, the successful or the struggling self. The teaching is not saying that your experience isn't real. It's saying that your experience may not be what you think or believe it to be. And this becomes incredibly practical when applied to your everyday life. Think about an argument that you've had with your partner. Most people believe they are responding to objective reality, but Tantra would ask a different question. What version of reality is appearing through your current state of consciousness? What assumptions, beliefs, fears, desires, or past experiences are coloring what you're perceiving? Because if consciousness participates in creating experiences, then changing consciousness changes experience. Not because reality magically changes, but because the relationship between perceiver and perceived changes. And that can change everything. The school of recognition teaches that liberation does not come from creating a new reality. It comes from recognizing the deeper consciousness already present beneath every experience. The unlimited I, the big S self that exists before any particular thought, feeling, or identity appears. This is one of the reasons I do the work that I do through men's transformational yoga, helping men navigate major life or relationship transitions to rebuild self-trust, clarity, and grounded direction. Many men feel disconnected from themselves during periods of pressure or uncertainty, relationship challenge, or identity shifts. Often they believe the problem is entirely external. But underneath that is simply a relationship with reality that has become conditioned by old beliefs, old fears, and old patterns. The work is learning to see clearly again. If you're ready to recognize what is actually happening beneath the surface so that action can emerge from truth rather than reaction, follow the link in the description. One of my favorite lines from this week's study comes from the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. The awareness of the knower and the known is common to all embodied beings. But for the yogis, this is the difference. They pay careful attention to the connection. This teaching isn't asking us to escape life. It's inviting us to pay attention to the relationship between observer and observed. So what does this look like practically? The next time you feel triggered, anxious, frustrated, rejected, or afraid, press pause. Instead of focusing only on the object of your attention, become curious about its quality and about the perceiver. What assumptions are you bringing? What beliefs are shaping what you're seeing? What story is consciousness currently telling itself? Because often transformation begins the moment we realize we're not seeing reality objectively. We're seeing reality through a particular lens. For the Tantric yogi, one of the most fascinating practices gets to be observing. Consciousness creating experience in real time. the perceived object, the perceiver, and the process connecting them, all appearing simultaneously, all arising within consciousness itself. The deeper this recognition becomes, the less trapped we feel inside any particular experience. Thoughts still arise and emotions still come, life still happens, but our identity is no longer limited to the contents of consciousness. Hey, buddy. We begin recognizing ourselves as the field in which those experiences appear. You're not merely experiencing reality. Reality is appearing through consciousness as your experience. Most people believe they are a separate self navigating an external world. Tantra offers a radically different possibility, that both self and world are appearances within a deeper field of awareness. And if that's true, then perhaps you are far less limited than you currently imagine. Perhaps what you are is not the conditioned identity you've inherited, but the consciousness in which that identity appears. This is empowering because it means you are not permanently trapped by any thought, emotion, circumstance, or story. The moment you can observe and experience, you've already discovered that there is something deeper than the experience itself, something capable of witnessing it, something larger than it, something free. The path of recognition is not about becoming something new. It's about remembering what has always been true beneath every experience you've ever had. So this week's contemplation is simple. Where in your life have you been assuming that your experience is reality itself? And what changes when you become curious about the relationship between the perceiver and the perceived, and the process connecting them? If you'd like to go deeper into this week's teaching, there is a full quiz linked in the description to help integrate what we've explored here today. And if you'd like the answers, you can access them for free through the link in the description as well. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next transmission. Cheers.